Hello, my name is Max Otte. I'm an entrepreneur and a fund manager, but I used to be a professor, and I'm in the board of the International Oswald Spengler Society. The society is inspired by Oswald Spengler's works, but applies state-of-the-art insight and approaches to understanding humanity and world history. We issued a call for papers relating to Spengler for a conference here in the Eifel in Germany. And I was skeptical if there would be enough resonance, but we were surprised to have so many young scientists, but also established scientists interested in Spengler, in his thoughts, in his philosophy. We have participants from China, from South Africa, from Russia, from Canada, from all over Europe. So Spengler research is alive, and the research into the rise and fall of cultures and of humanity and its cultures is very much alive, and I think this is an interesting field to be active in the future.
I first encountered Oswald Spengler's work when I was researching Martin Heidegger's theory of technology, and I discovered that Spengler had had an enormous influence on Heidegger's later thought. And once I began reading Spengler, I just kept on reading Spengler, and here I am today.
My name's Jack. I originally got to Oswald Spengler through my studies of Arab and Islamic culture in the 20th century. So I was looking at how Arab philosophers, Islamic philosophers were interpreting their position vis-a-vis the West. And through that, I managed to find references to Oswald Spengler's philosophy of history. And I found it quite unusual that there was a German name cropping up amongst all these Arab discussions about their own society. So I decided to look in further into Oswald Spengler. And then here I am, 2 or 3 years later, having devoted the last few years to studying Oswald Spengler and becoming entangled in his philosophy.
My name is Dezső Csejtei. I'm from Hungary. I'm a professor of philosophy from the University of Szeged. I got to know Spengler some 30 years ago at the political change when Hungary became a free country. And after the political change, I've decided to make the translation of the most important books of Spengler, and we did The Decline of the West in 1992 and 3 with 2 of my colleagues. One of them was is my wife, and it was a hit when it appeared in 94, and this was a great event for me. And at that time there was a Euro optimism, and during making the translation, I was just wondering who the hell will read these 2 bulky volumes. And after 25 years, I can say that Spengler predictions are true, and one should pay much more attention to his philosophy than before.
How I came to Spengler is in fact because I also work on conceptual history, so how to perceive ideas of a certain time and look at these frameworks. And I think exactly this is what Oswald Spengler did. He perceived in his own time what he called the Faustian culture, and then tried to show to his readers what this kind of Faustian cultures will make in history. So what he does in his time, I try to do in my time for economic analysis and for certain features of ancient history.
I am happy to be here. This conference provides me a chance to know Spengler more, and to know Spengler more provides me a chance to know Chinese modern history more detail. Thank you.
My name is Frol Vladimirov. I'm coming from Russia, and I've been infatuated with Oswald Spengler's work for over 20 years. What makes such a great impression on me in Spengler is that he opens an absolutely new, magnificent, cosmic perspective of what history is, of what world is, of what a man is. And I'm happy to be in this conference because those people who deal seriously with Spengler, they are people of men of thought, thinking individuals. And they are here now, and I have this grand opportunity to exchange thoughts, ideas, and intuition about the most important thing in the world, about our future, which is being derived from our past by the philosophy of Spengler.
Hello, my name is Henk de Burg. I'm a professor at the University of Sheffield. I've got a doctoral student who works on the philosophy of Oswald Spengler, and that doctoral student and I are together editing a series of essays by Oswald Spengler in English translation called Oswald Spengler Selected Essays.
Hello, I'm Hercules Boshoff. I'm a PhD researcher from South Africa, Bloemfontein in the Free State. And I do my PhD in philosophy on the topic of economics and subjectivity. And it was brought to my attention on an exchange program in Vrije University in Amsterdam to look into Spengler's work, only into the last section of volume 2, but then as I read it I realized there's a lot of more interesting things in his theory, and subsequently it hasn't left me. So I'm very glad to be a part of this conference, and also I find all the people here and the conference itself very insightful, and I enjoy the conversation with all the people here. So thank you for having me.
I can't remember precisely how I came to discover or even know of Oswald Spengler around, I don't know, age 18 or 19 in Montreal, Canada, where he wasn't exactly part of the culture, but I found his work very consonant with my interest in the different mentalities that have shaped different cultures over the world, the historicity and the different worlds that are the major world cultures are on their own, and that's what the part of his work that I like. Yeah.
How I came to Oswald Spengler, I must have been through my education as a history teacher. What I remember is that we had a course also on the philosophy of history at the time. I was about 18 years old. I was being trained as a history teacher, and there was a text that mentioned many authors, including Hegel and Collingwood and so on, and also it was mentioned Spengler. It was passed over very briefly, but somehow there came into a discussion also with the teacher. His name was Gerard Pieters. It was about Spengler. And the discussion also, yeah, but was he a Nazi or was he not a Nazi? Well, no, because he didn't want to be a member of the party. And there was a bit of discussion about it, and also that he criticized the Nazis and that he was an opponent of the regime. But then others said, yes, but it's a very pessimistic philosophy still, and it needs rejuvenation. And that was kind of interesting. And then after this short discussion, I was like, okay, well, I want to know more about this. So I bought on the internet an old copy of Decline of the West, an old British copy from very long ago, printed somewhere in the 1950s or something. And I read the whole thing. It was quite big. It contained both the first volume and the second volume. But because I was being a history teacher in a smaller town somewhere else in the Netherlands, I had to take a very long train trip every day. And also the train schedule was not properly adjusted to the lesson schedule. So no matter what, I always had to wait 1 hour for the train to come. And then I had to take the train trip. So despite being very busy, I still had the time to read a bit in the book every day, and because of that train trips. And then I finished the whole book. I took about half a year to finish it that way. I also took it with me to Berlin when we had school excursion to Berlin. I also read it there. I had some ideas. Okay, I would say the idea is brilliant. The idea that a civilization moves through phases of life, and that idea is brilliant by itself. That a civilization has a point of origin and also a point of decline, and basically you can compare it to a human being in that way. But also I saw the weak points, that he makes sometimes quite big leaps in his ideas. He's not also so explicit in what he says. At other times it's quite dense and hard to follow, and it's very deeply mathematical and makes leaps in ideas. But so I would say, okay, it is inspiring enough to want to know more about it, but also enough to have some critical reflection upon it. Yeah, I do think there's also a lot to criticize upon it. However, the idea is very brilliant, and it deserves more attention, I would say. Yes.
Originally, I was studying international relations, but then I noticed this kind of insufficiency of international relations analysis, because this mode of analysis was like short term. They did not account for long historical civilizational processes in international relations. This is actually how I switched from studying international relations to study history and philosophy of history. Fortunately, in Poland, at Jagiellonian University, both at the European Studies Department and at Philosophy Department, we did study philosophy of history, and Oswald Spengler was one of the authors that we did study. We read the Polish translation called Zmierzch Zachodu. And the problem that emerged for me, especially, is whether we could actually take the civilizational historical narratives about the cyclical or spiral nature of historical progress, and whether we can apply it to the study of modern international relations, modern demography, modern cultural evolution. And it occurred to me that we can, and Spengler and Toynbee and other scholars who should be completely reread today, because we face the greater dynamics of globalization. The civilizational ideas return in 21st century because of the gradually faster speed of societal evolution. That is why we need a completely new theory of civilizational change that would account for liquidity, dynamics, and of course cyclical nature of or spiral, so both cyclical and linear nature of historical progress. And I deeply believe Spengler, Toynbee, modern philosophers of history are really needed to make not only the West but the world understand itself again.
I first encountered Oswald Spengler's work when I was researching Martin Heidegger's theory of technology, and I discovered that Spengler had had an enormous influence on Heidegger's later thought. And once I began reading Spengler, I just kept on reading Spengler, and here I am today.